And here on the main stage, we are going to have aligning strategy with activity. So it's a panel discussion that's being organized with Roberto Priolo, Jim Womack, and Dr. Fred Pinto. So, Priolo, I leave it to you.
Thank you. All right, let's see if the audio improves. All right. Hello, everybody. Sounds like he hasn't improved. Let me introduce, and hopefully somebody can help us backstage in the meantime. We have here Jim Womack and Dr. Fred Pinto. Jim is the founder of the Lean Enterprise Institute in the US, and Fred Pinto is the CEO of the IOV Group in Brazil. This is our opportunity to discuss one of the 9 challenges and aligning strategy with activities, what we're going to be talking about. And when we talk about aligning strategy,
Priolo?
Yes.
I believe you have another session open. Can you check in your computer or reduce the audio that you're hearing? Because there's entering a lot of feedback from your audio.
Is it better now?
Yes, much better.
Right. All right, good. Sorry about that.
Okay, bye-bye. I will leave you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, that's nice, much better. So I was saying this is an opportunity in this panel to discuss one of the 9 challenges that we have decided to focus this event on. And when we talk about aligning strategy with activity in the Lean world, what we're really talking about is Hoshinkanri, which is the chief tool that Lean practitioners have at their disposal to try and connect the strategy that they have set for their business with the everyday activities on the shop floor or at department level. And today, with Fred and Jim, I would really like to get into 3 main points. And the first of this is I would like to ask them to share their view on the preconditions that allow Hoshin to happen. We know that a lot of organizations, they get to Hoshin later in their Lean journey. Why is that? And in your experiences, what are those preconditions that need to be in place?
Well, let me just quickly, I'm the voice of theory. Dr. Fred can be the voice of experience. Actually, we did do Hoshin at the very beginning of LEI, and in a completely unstable, unformed organization, and we discovered we couldn't do it. It was just too much whirling around. So what I've learned over time is that you actually need to have some level of basic stability. If your organization is so wobbly, so many things are going wrong so much of the time, it's just very difficult to have any mind share to think about the Hoshin process, even the front end, much less the implementation process. So, and by the way, we discovered that in many other areas of Lean practice. But it doesn't sound very interesting, but if you really start with basic stability and creating it, and that means daily management and real-time problem solving and an escalation process, you're going to be so much better off in trying to implement anything else, and that is true of Hoshin as well. The one other thing I would say is that this, more than anything else, requires constancy of purpose, as Dr. Deming used to say, by the CEO and by the leadership team. What we've also learned about Hoshin is you won't get it right the first time, the first year, the first 3 years. It's really hard to do. So that there has to be a belief that this is worth the suffering, and there have to be people who are willing to stick with it. This is not a one and done deal. This is a path, it's a journey, and you've really got to be willing to climb that hill, or maybe you shouldn't start.
Very good. Fred, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, well, when we started Hoshin, we were struggling with our accreditation process back in 2009, 2010, and what was very helpful for us is what just Jim said, is that we got a common purpose. we were struggling about our accrediting process, and we found, and we asked ourselves, what is the most important value for our clients? And we said, well, it's safety. So let us create just one single goal, one single mission for that cycle. And we usually do at that time we decided not to do it, and then we never did it. What we do is that cycles like 2 to 3 to 4 years of a Hoshin, because some plans are too long to be holding a single regular calendar year. So we usually plan for 2 to 3 years, and then we will achieving those goals and those milestones in the Hoshin plan. But it was easy for us at the first time because we got just one single purpose. And I also consider that it would not have.
All right, let's see. Looks like Fred has some connection issues. Fred, okay, I think you're back, but we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Is that the sign? Is that what we say?
Yes.
Can hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Good now.
I'm back. I'm
You're back.
sorry.
All right.
Well, where you lost me, I was talking about daily management.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So daily management was crucial for our Hoshin because we have to communicate our plans, and we have to transform an idea from our strategic team to our tactical team, to our managers, and then to people working, and we have to have a same message. So I think that if we ain't got daily management at that point, it wouldn't be possible. Actually, daily management made everything easier for the first cycle, then the second, and then the third. But then I think we will talk about that on the upcoming questions.
Very good. Very good. Jim, if anything to add to this, if not, we can move on to the next topic.
Well, just to say that oddly, daily management tries to escalate those things that need to be dealt with at a higher level. But there's an opposite escalation, which is that as you get good at Hoshin, you need to be able to cascade it down to the bottom level. I mentioned in my talk this morning going to Toyota's Lexus facility in Kyushu in Japan just before the pandemic. And in the daily huddle space, they had the Hoshin from the top of Toyota that had been cascaded all the way down to specifically what was needed from their team. Now, I don't think there's anybody else in the world that could do that. But I thought, wow, that's escalation up and deployment down to a point where the people at the bottom actually do understand the connection between what they're being asked to do and what it means for the company. So that's a pretty mature system when you can do that, but I think it's an aspirational goal.
Very good.
I think that we have one advantage about this condition. It's because we're talking about lives and saving lives. So it's a visual and a clear connection. So we were lucky when we were doing our Hoshin, thinking about safety, because some goals are not easily translated into operational activities. And for us, the question for our team when we did the catch ball downhill is what I'm doing here is improving patient safety. How this activity is important for improving patient safety. And I think that's the real question about Hoshin, is to connect your goal with your daily activity. And we were lucky about that because we were lucky to find a common goal that was meaningful.
And maybe Fred, it might be worth sharing with the audience what is your purpose. You have a very clearly stated.
Yeah, our mission is to reduce the cancer burden among us all. So we are a cancer organization, and everyone is touched by cancer somehow. Everyone knows have a friend or a family member or a father or a sister, whatever, touched by cancer. And the burden is not just for healthcare, for individuals' healthcare. It's financial, it's social. There's a lot of social conditions and financial conditions, and we can reduce this burden in many ways. Even with a single smile, you can reduce cancer burden. So it's easier for us for this purpose.
Thank you, Fred. Let's move on to the second topic that I wanted to discuss. That's the idea of deselection. So, you know, when your circumstances change, of course, your Hoshin adapts to your new reality. And when you have to come up with with your Hoshin, one of the other things that you have to deal with is functional interest. You have different departments wanting different things. And that, I suppose, links to also the challenge of, especially when you begin, I guess, you have a huge list of KPIs. How do you simplify? So, like, again, how do you bring this all together and really simplify so that it's a process that can be carried out?
Right. Well, look, my observation about this is that there isn't an organization there's ever been that wouldn't naturally try to do too many things, because every person, every department, every area, every plant, every office has got their own view of the world, which is a small view, but very important to them. It is their world. And they can just see things that need to be fixed, things that could be better, that would make life more livable. So then when you take that all the way to the top, everyone shows up for the Hoshin meeting with a list of things that would be the most important things to do. And then you get there and you say, well, wait a minute, we haven't got enough time or energy or bandwidth to do but a small number of these. How do we decide? And the default decision is you don't. And so you see organizations that have got 20 or 25 Hoshin objectives, and you know perfectly well that if you've got 25 Hoshin objectives, you'll get about 4% of each objective achieved, because that adds up to 100%, right? And that doesn't do you any good. So therefore, there is the need to actually deselect. And it's another of these things where you need an Obeya room or a Hoshin room, because you actually need all the people to be, you know, at the next level down are going to make the decision here, the executive leadership team. They've all got to be present to actually look at each other and agree, here are the 3 things we're going to do. And that's so important, that you can't do this by email. You can't do it by text. You can't do it by Zoom. You need, well, there may be some cases where you've got an organization that's all over the place. But the point is, you need to be standing there with your fellow value creators and making tough choices. I always say that if this isn't hard, you aren't doing Hoshin. Okay, and that's is the real hard part, is to make decisions. Just one thing more that goes with that. There are a lot of things that don't need to be Hoshin. Let me give a Toyota example. That one of the things that the company has always tried to do is every year in every department for every activity, they try to reduce cost, real cost, by 3%. Okay, that's not a Hoshin thing. That's part of your annual or quarterly management. So that's different from Hoshin. Hoshin to me is just the few big things that everybody's got to cooperate on, or they can't happen, that involve the whole organization and that we hope move the needle. In Dr. Fred's business, what more important thing is there to do than improve patient safety? And that involves everybody, right? So therefore, there's a lot of stuff that can be just part of not just daily management, but monthly, quarterly, whatever. And part of, by the way, the budgets. You know, Toyota still has a conventional budget. Every department has one. And every year you're supposed to improve your performance. Well, that's good. It's wonderful. It's just not Hoshin. Hoshin is the big things that you have to do now that are really going to make a difference. That's my experience.
Thank you, Jim.
That's funny because we have one item that it's always in our Hoshin. The first one is safety. It's always there. So we planned it to happen like every other year. We have to do one value stream of one of our practices and improve safety on that. And this part of the Hoshin is always there, but is also named as what we used to say business as usual. And business as usual in Brazil means, if you use the acronym of it, is BAU, means big box. So it's where we got a big box of stuff that is in our Hoshin, but it will be always there. We will be always looking for safety. We will always be looking for reducing costs because this is part of our work. But then we got one new north. In the second cycle of our 3 big cycles of Hoshins, we merged with another organization and we doubled in size. So we decided to start practicing lean with them. And what happened is that we were struggling. There were a lot of firefighting and a lot of problems with. They were not really prepared for that, for talking about problems, defects, raising hands to say, oh, that's wrong, don't do that, or we have to discuss about safety. So the second cycle was about how to change a culture, and we spent a lot of time with that. And one thing that it's really important, I think, because this made our decisions tougher, is to be able to deselect and to reduce workload for teams to have time to work with what is really important in the Hoshin, in our strategy. Because we in healthcare we have a lot of workload. I mean, we're all the time overburdened with paperworks and patients and families and things that you have to do, and we're all of the time we're running out of enough personnel to work with. We got problems with approvals in the insurance companies all of the time, and we have to decide, well, with this workload, how can we make these things happen? So I think that one thing we decided to do as well is that the tactical part of our Hoshin with our leader teams, I mean, with our managers and whatever, is that your work is to make space, make room, create safe time for people, to protected time for people to work on what we are focusing on in the projects that we need. And if we ain't got daily management to do that up and down escalate, and we're not saving time for them to work on what we considered our crucial projects or true north, we wouldn't have been able to make it work. I think that our team or managers, we used to say that they are the enablers of our Hoshin, because these guys are the guys that need to create space and time to make things work, and this is a deselection. We won't do that, we won't do that, we won't do that. It's more most of the time is saying we won't do it. We will do what we have to do. And this is a big call for managers to decide not to do, because we say, oh no, just bring one more thing here and we'll manage it. I say, no, we won't. We're struggling at this point right now what to do with a few stuff, and decided we won't do that because we ain't got resources. I mean, resources is not money, it's time. We ain't got time to do that.
Thank you. Jim, did you want to add something?
No, I think we've kind of covered that.
Great. So the last topic I wanted to discuss, one of the things that really Hoshin enables is the opportunity to look more long-term at the situation in your organization. And this is something that a lot of organizations in all sectors really struggle with. There is a lot of short-termism. The idea is like, we're going to look at what's happening now, we're firefighting, and then, you look at Asian culture, Japanese culture, Chinese culture, and there is certainly some kind of there is a bigger focus on the long term, of like thinking 5-10 years down the line. Perhaps that's what gives Hoshin and lean more in general this gift of long-termism. But I wanted to ask your opinion on that. Does Hoshin enable long-termism in an organization, and what is the importance of having the ability to think long-term?
Well, first off, let me say, as I look at it, that daily management, and this is a good thing, is short-termism. The point is, you got to do something now. Something bad happened last night. We need to do something good this morning to keep from repeating the bad thing that happened last night. That's a great short-term thing, right? And a budget you have, typically people run on sort of an annual cycle, who knows why, but they do. That's a sort of intermediate term. And then Hoshin is a longer term activity that's really important, not just for this year, but for the long-term success of the organization. So therefore, it's inherently about longer term. The question, again, getting back to constancy of purpose, do you have a leadership team that can actually think about, gosh, where are we going to be 5 years or 10 years from now? In many organizations, you can't, because they aren't going to be there. That things are just constantly churning. People are coming, people are going. Toyota, I hate to have to always go back to our poster child, but it's just a fact that people go there to work for life, and that is the expectation. You come in at age 18 to work in the plant. You come in at age 22 to work in the office. And even now, this is after all these years, the expectation is this is your calling. This is your thing. And so therefore, if you have the expectation that you're going to be around, well, it's easier to say, whoa, we got to do this big Hoshin thing, because if we don't do it, maybe we won't be around at all. And certainly life is going to be very difficult. So it motivates people to say, why don't we look at the long term? And that's, there's no question, that's just a difference in country cultures, company cultures. Back in the day when I first came into analyzing businesses, companies like General Motors expected people to come for life. And they really did. You could walk around, and the question that you always encountered as you walk around is, how many years have you been here? Every time you go to a meeting with people who didn't know each other very well, here's been here 37 years, and I've been here 33 years, and so on. In today's world, it's very different. That's much less likely. So, however, there's always cause and effect. Do people churn because every place you go is just miserable, and so you just keep prospecting for something that's better? Or has something happened to the world where employers no longer value the long term, and the employees hear that? It's every person for that person's self, every day, every month, every year. Or we're in this together for the long term. I note that Dr. Fred's been at this for a while. Okay. And gosh, maybe that makes you weird. You've been doing this Hoshin stuff for years, right? You're still there, and you're still doing it. And my guess is a lot of your team is still there, and that's part of the reason they're still there. I could be wrong. I haven't been a CEO in a long time, but nevertheless, there is this notion of thinking long-term when you, the employee, you're not even going to be around. I mean, that's really heroic. But if you are going to be around, well, then that's just sensible. So how can we deal with that? I don't have an easy answer, but it seems to me that for Hoshin is a big question. How do we have constancy of purpose? How do we stick around to see through these important Hoshin objectives?
That's great. Thank you, Jim. Fred, what about you? Let's try maybe like 2-3 minutes so that we have a couple of minutes for Q&A as well,
Yeah.
please.
Well, the only thing I have to say is that, yeah, probably because we planned our Hoshins with cycles like 3 to 4 years from the beginning, it gave people a vision of at least 4 or 5 years of expectation and that will be on the same trail for the next 4 or 5 years. And we've been investing for the same stuff for the next 3 or 4 years. So it helps a lot, because budgets are a bad way to manage and to look for companies and to make decisions that would make define what is the real true north of organization. So I think that's the real deal. People would love to have long-term visions about stuff.
Thank you very
Stability, I think, is what they're looking for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to the Q&A. We have a couple of questions already, and people watching, please feel free to ask any questions. We have the chat available for you. And so the first question, is it possible to change the Hoshin indicators after they have been defined?
Well, I think, Dr. Fred, you're the man to talk about that. Of course, for me, I'm just off into deep theory. I can come up with a theory either way, but you're the person who actually does this. So I think your experience is what we need to hear.
I think you can change it. The point is that if you got a true north, if you've got a real definition of what you're looking after, probably you're aiming too long for the short term. I mean, you have a long shot for not a feasible. Actually, we had to change completely our Hoshin plan during the pandemic. And it was like a revolution in our activity. And we had to change not only the Hoshin, we had to change the way we did meetings. We had to change the way we did daily management. And we had to change our goals and our objectives and our financial expectations for that cycle. So you can change it. The world is more unstable than we would like it to be. So usually we use the catchball to make this kind of decisions. I mean, I'm still doing clinical practice, so I have a pretty much look about what our Gemba really looks like, and this is crucial for you to decide to make. Well, what's happening at the Gemba, and it's not we're not gonna make that goal with what's going on the Gemba at this time. So sometimes you have to move your aim or your goals. And we did it a lot of times.
Thank you. We have two more questions that I would like to ask you. Let's try to keep it to 1 minute for each if possible. The first one is how to treat anxiety and resistance in younger employees. They don't have the patience to listen. They consider the face-to-face meetings recommended by Jim to be unimportant. They prefer to do everything digitally. Is this a problem in Western country? Does it only work in Japan? I mean, don't accept daily management and A-freeze filled out manually. Want in PowerPoint, Canva, Excel.
Yeah. Well, first off, I don't think it has anything to do with Japan. I think this is the world. That we've built a world of attention deficit, bombarding people with so many things so much of the time that you just get used to that. And you're always busy, and you got more text to answer and emails to answer and more stuff. And so what you hear from employees is we just don't have time to do that. Well, this is a challenge for management, but I think also young people often come into organizations where you say, let's all get together face to face. And they say, oh my gosh, another meeting that will go nowhere. Another meeting where nothing will get resolved. Which will just mostly be about scheduling the next meeting to deal with the fact that we didn't get anything done in this meeting. But what we're trying to do here is to have a process to pretty quickly decide what our big objectives are, to pretty quickly tie that to implementation. I think people may not believe that's possible. They don't believe any meeting can accomplish anything. They don't believe anything can be deployed quickly, maybe at all. And it's senior management's job to prove that's wrong and to say, hey, folks, will you go with me with an experiment? I know you think this sounds crazy, and let's experiment. And by the way, you can also always, during the Hoshin cycle, you can reflect on how's this feeling? Why these long looks? Why people are looking at their devices rather than looking at each other? Could we talk about that? And see if we can find a way that we can be together as opposed to be each in our own space.
Jim?
Easy for me to say, but that's the view I'd take.
Jim, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Fred, Dr. Fred. Thank you, Priolo.
Fred. Thank you, Jim.
But unfortunately, time is up. We will have to close this panel. Thank you for sharing these ideas. Bye-bye.